So Long and Thanks for All the Fish by Douglas Adams. Foreword by Neil Gaiman. Here is a note to the listener. If you've not listened to the audiobooks I've done before, and have come here having just heard the previous books, you should skip this introduction and go straight to the beginning of the book. Stuff is given away here. There are spoilers ahead. Just listen. This'll still be here when you get back. No, I mean it. I'll wait for a minute. I'll see you after them, when you've listened to the book. Douglas Adams was tall. He was brilliant. I've met a handful of geniuses, and I'd count him as one of them. He was a frustrated performer, a remarkable explainer and communicator, an enthusiast. He was an astonishing comic writer. He could craft sentences that changed the way a reader viewed the world and sum up complex and difficult issues in aptly chosen metaphors. He combined the trappings of science fiction with profound social commentary and a healthy sense of humour to create fresh worlds. He loved computers and was an astonishingly fine public speaker. He was a best-selling author. He was a competent guitarist, a world traveller, an environmentalist, a man who held remarkably wonderful parties, a gourmand. What he was not, and this may seem somewhat odd, especially when you consider how many of them he wrote and sold, and how famously well he wrote them, was a novelist. And this, I suspect, unarguably, is the oddest of his novels. So Long and Thanks for All the Fish was Douglas Adams's first attempt to write a novel from scratch. In many ways, it could be seen as an experiment. A transitional novel between the galaxy-spanning romps of the first three Hitchhiker books and the more earthbound adventures of Dirk Gently. It was, after all, the first of three of Douglas's books not to have originated in the extraordinary period of creativity that took him from the creation of the Hitchhiker's radio series to the end of his time as script editor of Doctor Who. His first two books, The Hitch-Hiker's Guide to the Galaxy and The Restaurant at the End of the Universe, had strong foundations. They were built on the backs of the scripts that Douglas and, for the second series, Douglas and John Lloyd had crafted for the original Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy BBC Radio 4 series. The third book, Life, the Universe and Everything, was adapted from an unused outline Douglas had written for a Doctor Who film, Doctor Who and the Cricketmen. His next book, the remarkable Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency, was adapted from Douglas's unfilmed Doctor Who story, Shada, with a sprinkling of ideas from the filmed Doctor Who story, City of Death. The first books had been written by Douglas as a young man for a world that expected nothing as paperback originals. Now Douglas was, for the first time, being published in hardback. He was a best-selling novelist who had not yet written a book he was proud of. This may partly have been because he was not a novelist. Now he needed to write a book he had been paid a lot of money to write. His accountant has embezzled most of the money and then killed himself. Douglas Adams had gone to Hollywood on his first, abortive quest to get The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy made into a film. He'd lived there for over a year, doing drafts of the film, did not have a good time, and, surprised and a little battered, he'd returned home to a small converted stable house off Upper Street in Islington, where eventually, and under pressure, he put off actually writing So Long and Thanks for All the Fish. His publishers, Pan, found themselves early in 1984 soliciting a book that was, for the most part, unwritten, and for that matter, mostly unplotted. The lenticular image on the original cover showed a walrus that had become a dinosaur because Douglas had mentioned that there would be a walrus in the book. There would be no walrus in the book. It became part of the story of the book that, as the publishing date of the book got closer, and the book got no closer to being written, publisher Sonny Mehta had taken a hotel suite and essentially locked Douglas in to write it, editing the pages as they came through. It was a strange way for a book to be written, and something Douglas used as an excuse for any problems that the book had. But it was a book he was still particularly proud of when it came out. I remember that. Douglas Adams had returned from America to Islington, and So Long and Thanks for All the Fish occurs in the space that Southern California isn't, which is to say that both Douglas's outer space and his Southern California are extremely Californian. The hotel in which rock stars read Language, Truth and Logic by the pool, and the bar in which Ford Prefect attempts to pay his bill with an American Express card are not a galaxy apart, and the hooker who has a special service for rich people could exist as easily in one world as another. Arthur Dent in previous stories, a flat character who existed mostly to boggle at the improbabilities, often infinite, he was confronted with, became someone significantly more like Douglas. Douglas's return from America was echoed in Arthur Dent's return from hitchhiking across all of time and space to an Earth that the readers believed to have been destroyed, and his explanation to the world that it had been in America. It might be seen as a problem for a writer who is considered a social satirist to have, a few pages into the first book in a best-selling series, destroyed the Earth. On the good side, it sets you free to explore the vastness of the infinite. On the downside, it rather limits you as an observational humorist when it comes to specifics. And while Douglas may not have been a novelist, he was definitely an observational humorist. Still, I think there's another reason for the restoration of the Earth at the beginning of this book. Like it or not, and when it came out some people did and some people didn't, So Long and Thanks for All the Fish is a love story, and the novel puts an Earth back for there to be a love story on. Underneath all the glitter, Arthur and Fenchurch and the unlikely circumstance of their meeting, their love, and the travails thereof are the true subjects of the book. And as we grow older, our reading of books changes. As a young man writing a book about Douglas Adams and the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, I remember picking up on the awkwardness of chapter 25 and Douglas's rhetorical question as to whether or not Arthur Dent has spirit? Has he no passion? Does he not, to put it in a nutshell, fuck? Those who wish to know should read on. Others may wish to skip on to the last chapter, which is a good bit and has Marvin in it. I took it at the time as a manifestation of Douglas's contempt and discomfort with his audience, and was uncomfortable with it. Rereading it a quarter of a century later, I found myself reading those paragraphs as worried bluster, as if Douglas was scared that he was out of his depth and was trying to respond to critics or to friends ahead of time. I still suspect that, had there been time to rewrite, to rethink, to revise, that strange breaking of the fourth wall and the author-reader compact might never have happened. I do not think it would have been a better book for not having been finished in a hotel bedroom while Sonny Meta watched videos in the room next door. After all, it is as part of his charm that So Long Thanks for All the Fish reads as if it's not so much being plotted as stumbled upon or backed into. It is surrealist in the way that a book extracted from the author without pause for inspection, for second thoughts or thousandth thoughts can only be. Characters appear and fade, dreamlike. Reality is frangible. The novel circles one event, a couple making love naked in the clouds in perfect flying magical dream sex, an event that is practically a poem. So Long and Thanks for All the Fish has, beneath the elegant veneer, the simplest, easiest, most traditional of plots. Boy meets girl, boy loses girl, boy finds girl, makes love to her in the clouds, and sets off with her to find God's final message to his creation. And does. After all, for a book suffused from start to finish with gloom and melancholia, a book in which the universe itself is fundamentally perverse, when it is not actually malicious. So Long and Thanks for All the Fish is often peculiarly upbeat. Chapter 18, for example, gives us triumphantly something unseen in the Hitchhiker universe until now. Transient and barely recognisable, but it's there. Joy. He hadn't realised that life speaks with a voice to you, a voice that brings you answers to the questions you continue to ask of it. Had never consciously detected it or recognised its tone until now it said something it had never said to him before, which was yes. Foreword was by Neil Gaiman, author of Don't Panic, Douglas Adams and the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and subsequently a famous author.